allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, our first agenda item is public input. Do we have anyone who would like to speak during public input? Yep, just come to the podium where the mic is and state your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening. My name is David Sperry,
I guess so.
12 Longview Drive, Chelmsford, Massachusetts. And I'm just here to do a shameless plug for the Clean Energy and Sustainability Committee that I'm putting an application for. I look forward to being selected for the committee. I believe my experience on the Chelmsford Energy Conservation Committee for 6 years will be valuable to that group with my knowledge of how the current energy systems work in town, both the schools, municipal buildings, solar arrays, and I think that'll be valuable input. I've also spent a lot of time helping Concom and the Land Trust maintaining their open spaces. And I want to make sure that we get credit for all of our open space work as part of our green footprint in this process. I also volunteer as a maintainer for the hydroelectric facility on Mill Pond at the Mill Stream. So I'm familiar with the hydroelectric rules in the state and some of those issues. So thank you for your time, and please remember me when you vote.
Thank you very much. Does anyone else want to speak during public input? Okay, I don't see anyone in the Zoom room either. So we'll move on to committee vacancies.
So for committee vacancies, as of September 20th, 2021, the Arts and Technology Education Fund Committee has one 3-year term. Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee has one unexpired 3-year term and one 3-year term. The CCA Advisory Committee has 2 1-year terms. Center Village Master Plan Implementation Committee has one 1-year term. Commissions on Disabilities has one unexpired 3-year term. Community Action Plan Committee has 2 1-year terms. Council on Aging has one 3-year term and 5 associate member positions staggered in 3-year terms. Cultural Council has 2 3-year terms. Holiday Decorating Committee has one 1-year term. Parade Committee will welcome all applicants for 1-year terms. Permanent Building Committee has one unexpired 3-year term. Celebrations Committee has 5 1-year terms. Recycling Committee has one 1-year term. Tree Committee has one unexpired 3-year term and one 3-year term. If you have any interest in any of these committees, you can check the town website, or you can apply online at the town website, or you can contact the town manager's office directly at 978-250-5202, or you can send an email to tmoffice@chelmsfordma.gov. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Next, we have the poll petition for Mill Road. Do we have anybody here from National Grid? No?
Usually he joins remotely, I don't see him.
There we go. Sorry, I lost my connection. Is there any discussion from the board before we open it to the public? Paul, do you have any additional knowledge on this one?
There's only 2 abutters. It's for a new service on Mill Road, right next to the apartments they built on Mill Road and then the plaza. Christina spoke to the 2 abutters today because there was a concern, I guess, on the date on the map. They didn't have any concerns. So I'm sort of puzzled as to why somebody from National Grid isn't here at the call this evening, but we've not received any concerns regarding this pole for new service.
Well, this is just, they're doing a pole 25 feet over, not taking one out.
Yeah,
This
right.
is, they're adding one 25 feet over.
Right, for the new lot there.
And DPW does support the petition, so.
So it's to support a new development?
Yeah, the new service line on the lot that's between the plaza and the driveway to the apartments on Mill Road.
Do we have anyone from the public who would like to make comment? I don't
And there were only
see-
2 abutters.
Yeah,
All right.
and it's a non-residential area.
And the notices went out.
Yeah, notices went out, yeah.
Does anyone have any concern with moving forward?
I don't like poles closer than 100 feet, but if they need it and it's only 25 feet, I mean, I guess I understand why they need it.
Steve Yanley has no problem.
Yeah. So if the DPW doesn't see an
He
issue,
reviewed it.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second motion.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0.
I'll make a motion to approve the installation of a new 45-foot Class 2 pole, 95-50, 25 feet plus or minus from the existing pole 95 for the new customer service located at 278 Mill Road.
A second motion?
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0. Okay, next we have reports and presentations. Paul?
Yeah, Susan Gates has joined us this evening to provide an update regarding the Chelmsford Center for the Arts use of the American Rescue Plan Act funds. And then in your packet, and Susan has received the financial report on the use of those monies from the town accountant, Darlene Lucier. So Susan's just going to come in and just give you an overview of where things are at, because it's been hard to believe. It's been a few months since you were here, but here we are, late
Here
September.
we are, right? Thank you for inviting me to come. Always like having the opportunity to talk with you and so that the public can know what's going on at the CCA. First, I'd like to say on this, the report that Darlene sent, it says $10,000 CCA director. It's for the technical director. I can't see.
It's correct.
Okay, it's
correct.
correct. I was going to say, I'm not getting paid. So that's a portion of that salary. So thanks to the $335,000 of ARPA funding, the CCA has been able to stay alive and plan our fiscal year '22 season. We've expended funds as noted by the town accountant, and we've fully booked our season. We are booked all the way until May 21st. There's something almost every single weekend. We have a couple of little gaps where I worry about snow, but really we are booked. And so the money that was allocated, it was $36,000 total that we had said we would like to spend on paying performers. That's earmarked. So even though you don't see it here, you will see it eventually because we've already done that. We have a consultant, J.C. Don Valeris. She's the principal of Platinum Circle Media, and she's designed our new website. I hope everybody will look at it, chelmsfordarts.org. And we've begun a social media campaign, and we've seen an uptick from people buying tickets and from looking at the website and through the social media work that she's done. And we've been working on an advertising plan that we've had ads run in Merrimack Valley Magazine, and now we're looking at the Lowell Sun to run ads there, and we're looking at other kinds of print, and we don't know about mailing yet, but we're developing that campaign.
Susan, excuse me?
Yes.
J.C. Don, is that the girl that was from North Chelmsford?
Yes,
and
yes,
went to
yes,
Nashville and then?
Yes,
Okay,
absolutely. You got the right one.
thank you.
We paid for utilities, and we hope the solar credits are going to appear. I was going to ask Paul, do you have any idea what the timeline is for that?
No, at this point in time, we don't, but
Okay.
we
I know it magically appears
Magically
every year at
appears,
some
and it's irregular,
point,
yeah.
right? So I didn't know whether you got a heads up about it. When I came to you before, it was pretty much like, oh, there's money, hurry up, and you got to be there and get something in right away. And I did the best I could in not coming up with a crazy budget, but I did not include cleaning of the building because we normally bring in enough money to pay for the cleaning of the building. So that's very difficult, and I'm hoping with the solar credits, when those come in, because it was a lump sum that was granted to us, it was not specifically for certain things. It could be used for many things. I'm hoping that we'll be able to, use some of the money for cleaning, but that's where we are with that. And we currently have one employee whose salary is funded. That's the technical director. We need a person to run our very sophisticated equipment. When we first started a decade ago, we had soundboards and lighting boards that I could run. And now they're much more complex. Through grants, we've added more microphones, a digital soundboard, things like that require expertise that's way beyond my pay grade. So we have money for that individual, but I'm sorry to say that May 21st is going to be my last day. I love the CCA. I've loved bringing it into, making it a reality, but I will tell everybody I'm going to be 69 this coming month, and it's time for me to do some other things with my life. And it really is important to me that we hire somebody with the remaining funds that we set aside for my replacement. We bring in somebody with education, training, background to carry this on, and hopefully somebody who's a lot younger than I am, who would stay here for a while and keep the CCA going. It's not good for one person to always be in charge like that kind of institution. We need some new people. So I've spoken with HR, and probably after the first of the year, we'll start working on figuring out how we're going to go about that search. And I hope that we'll be able to have somebody by April 1st, because it would not be a good idea to have no overlap. The person will need to learn certain things that I just know after doing this job for 10 years. And I'm more than happy to help out in any way I can. Anyway, that's it. If you have any other questions, I'm happy to answer them. And I hope everyone will look at our website, chelmsfordarts.org, and see some of the great things that we have coming up.
I did share with the board your new website last week.
Oh, you did?
It's
Okay.
really very impressive.
Thank you. Yes, that was JC did that, so that's through her company. We're very happy with it. And, we're facing the COVID problem, right? Will people come out to theaters and venues? People have good intentions, like, oh yeah, I'll be there, but when it comes to actually walking in the door, we don't know what's going to happen. We've had ticket sales, but will people show up? I don't know. But I hope that you will look at the website, find something you think is fun, and come join us.
So you've been doing this for 10 years?
What?
You've been doing this for 10 years?
I can't.
You've been doing this for 10 years?
Yeah, 10 years since we opened, but when was I on the board, Paul? That was a long time ago, right? When was
Before
it,
my
George? When was?
Before
our time.
15, 18 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. So
Wow.
we've been working on this for that long, and then a little more than a decade ago, maybe 12 years ago, we finally got it going, and we've been plugging away.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Arts matter.
Susan, is there still a board of directors for the CCA?
Well, it's a committee that's appointed by the town manager. By the way, it's on the list of volunteers
One open seat.
committees. Yeah, there are a couple people that, we can have a couple more people added. If there's anybody out there that loves the arts and actually wants to work, doing things like getting the word out, fundraising, anything at all, if you're active and you want to be part of what we do, please get in touch with the town manager's office and apply to be on that committee, or just contact me, and if you don't want to be on the committee but you want to do something, I'm happy to put people to work.
So, how much do you think you will expend by April of 2022?
Well, probably all the money by the end of the fiscal year.
The whole 335K?
Yeah, because it was, well, let's put it this way. the sooner somebody's hired to replace me, it makes the timeline shorter, right? In other words, the longer I hang on and the overlap is in April, now their salary would go into a year from there, all
So,
right?
so Paul and Susan, the reason I'm asking is, when we first talked about this, I thought that the thought process was to get somebody on board sooner rather than later, and
Right.
to work with the CCA board or committee or whatever it is, and you, from a transition standpoint, to get a strategy and a plan in place on what do we have to do to make this self-sustaining, so that when the 335K runs out, we're not scrambling with how to fund, or self-sustaining over time. And so I guess the only question that I would have is, does it make sense to wait until April to bring someone on board if you're leaving May 21st? Or should we bring someone in to be part of this process earlier with the transition to own how are we going to get the CCA to be more self-sustaining?
I mean, I guess, I feel like I say this every time I come in front of a group. No institution like this is self-sustaining on its own, right? None is. And it is going to take the town spending, out of a $160 million budget, what would see is about 100 and stretch it.
You're right. That was the discussion, that the
Right.
town would have to allocate a certain amount
Like
per year, right, Paul?
$175,000, right. And then it can keep going, because you need to pay the person
Right.
that replaces me and the technical director, and it's really the utilities that kill us, and it's a public building. But if that's taken care of, now we don't have breathing down our neck, how are we going to pay the utility bill? And then it's possible to go on and develop the programming and. And the hope is, if people come out to the wonderful shows that we have coming up, and we fill the seats, we will be filling our coffers again. Because the money that was allocated, the $36,000 for paying talent, they get paid that money, but all the money that comes in for the tickets then goes back into our account, right, and covers that. So we can do it, that becomes self-perpetuating, hopefully. So we have, for example, November 20th, we have Mads Tolling and the Madsmen. It's a Danish violinist and a jazz group, and they are doing a holiday program called Cool Yule, and it's all music that's based in, like, Hans Christian Andersen fairy tales and whatever, and he's fantastic. And like I said, they're coming from Denmark. We have, in May, we have a young pianist, Baron Ryan, who's coming from Oklahoma, and doing a program called From Classic to Cool. And that's the kind of people that we're bringing in. I'm not denigrating anybody local, because local's good, but we're bringing in national and internationally known talent. And so the only way we could do that is if we had the money from ARPA to be able to actually, because we have to upfront pay these people.
Right.
To do it.
So I guess my question is the same, though. If we don't bring somebody on board till April 1st and you leave May 21st,
So, yeah, it's a couple months of me being here, right?
where is the transition time? And, I mean, do we not have, I'm concerned about you leave, we don't bring another director on until April 1st, and there's been no overlap, and I thought part of
Well, the overlap will be those 2 months,
What, 2 months?
April and May. In other words, if somebody comes on April 1st, and I'm not leaving, I'm
Okay.
actually going on vacation, but when I come back, it'll be all of April and May to May 21st. And
Okay.
it's really done to.
And you guys think that's adequate to kind of work with this person to get a longer-term plan or approach in place?
Well, I'd be working with Paul, and hopefully, between now and then, to come up with with a plan. It's not like I'm just going, oh, well,
No,
drop
I
the hot
know.
potato on the new guy or gal.
I think you've also got the specter of COVID hanging over things as well, that if you can't, if you have a diminishment of in-person events, we could bring somebody in next month, but if they really can't implement or take actions until the situation improves, like you said, it's really a question of how much of a deficit you're going to have to fund.
Right, and I just was trying to conserve the money, because like I said, we could go and start looking around for somebody now, and let's say we hired them by December. Well, that's December, January, February, March, April, May. That's 6 months of paying the salary for somebody while I'm still here and can work where I don't, it's no cost to the town. I'm trying to stretch the money out longer, and 2 months of me working with the person and working between now and then with Paul to come up with a plan, I think is the best we can do.
Okay.
I mean, even all our contracts with everybody is like all based on COVID. If things got really shut down, and now we'd be back at square one. Well, I'm sorry. I wish I had a not cloudy crystal ball, but I don't, so.
So I have a question about the hiring process for that. Do you have any thoughts how that, I mean, you mentioned working with Jeannie, so you'll.
Right, well, we haven't set, we just said, if we're going to do this, we have to start sometime around, just after the first of the year. Because the person should be somebody who has education, training, and background in arts management. And we're really lucky because UMass Lowell has a program, Simmons has a program, BU has a program, Berkeley, Boston Conservatory has a program, and Emerson has a program. So Boston, this area, has a really good pool of young candidates who are getting master's degrees in this field. So I feel like we have a good shot at finding somebody with that education, training, and background. I'm sure they'll have done internships and, that kind of thing. I think we can find somebody. Plus, to be honest, we don't have top dollar to pay somebody, right? It's really going to be almost like an entry-level kind of job in this world.
So I guess more my question is, like, who will do the hiring? Will it be the CCA Advisory Committee, or will it be the town manager and HR? Any
I think we'll
thoughts
all
on-
be involved in the process. HR will, when we go through a selection, we'll invite people on the board to be participants in the selection process. So that way, everybody has input and stake in it. So that's how we envision it unfolding.
I don't know, Paul, would it be like when we were renovating, you appointed me to the Permanent Building Committee as a non-voting member, but I got to, participate. So I assume that there would at least be that, where, we would all have some input.
Any other questions? Thank you,
Thank
Susan.
you.
Appreciate
Thank you,
all you're
Susan.
doing.
And, I hope I see you at the CCA this Friday from 5:30 to 7:30. This is my last shot here. Lori Simcoe's portraits of nurses from Holy Family Hospital who worked in the ICU, her COVID portraits. They're in our gallery, and you're welcome to come from 5:30 to 7:30. You need to wear a mask. We want people to be vaccinated too, but come in and see these portraits. If you've seen photographs of them, the photographs do not do them justice. Photographs are amazing, but when you actually see these portraits, it's very moving to see the faces of these, women and men who are treating people in a COVID ICU. So come down. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Paul, we have town manager appointments.
Yeah, I just have one appointment for your confirmation this evening. It's for the Commission on Disabilities, and we're seeking the confirmation of Sarah Ward Metzger for a term ending June 30th, 2024, to the Commission on Disabilities.
So Paul, does this fill up that last one expired?
I think there's one, and there's one unexpired after this, so we have two
Okay.
openings, so there'll be one more after this.
Any questions?
I'll make a motion that we approve Sarah Ward Metzger as, to the Commissions on Disabilities for the 3-year term.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0.
Thank you.
Could I just ask the board, I think the fall town meeting presentation is probably going to be the most time-consuming thing on this agenda. And since we have somebody who came for the item number 8, the appointments to the Clean Energy Committee, would anybody
Wanna take it out
object to
of order?
taking that out of order?
Let's do that.
So we don't hold people here unnecessarily?
That's a good move.
Okay, so we're moving to agenda item number 8, appointments to Clean Energy and Sustainability Committee. We had 21 applicants for 9 positions. Is there any comments or discussion about how we want to proceed forward?
Well, I mean, do we want to invite them into, I know that they filled out their applications, and
I know some of them are pretty extensive as far as their
Yeah, right.
explanations. I think that a lot of them did very well in explaining why they wanted to be, what their focus and goals would be.
I agree with you. And I'm assuming, though, that by doing the application, knowing we were voting on it tonight, that was their invitation to come in, or no?
Are we voting on it tonight?
Or are we?
Well, that's what we're discussing.
Okay.
I don't know. I've never had this many applications for.
Exactly.
for-
There are 21 applicants for 9
Right.
positions.
And it's hard, usually you got, 2
hard to
seats,
do
one
it off the
applicant, and
paper.
so you take them, but,
Yeah.
I mean, where we have some great people here, and some great quality people,
I mean, one thing I just throw out as a suggestion on how we might move forward is, my understanding is the intent is to then eliminate the Energy Conservation Committee, right? And fold that into here. And I know that at least 2 or maybe even 3 or 4 of the applicants either are currently on that committee or have served before. I would almost suggest taking those and making them be automatic members. And then for the remaining slots, maybe we each pick 1. And that should come out to about 9. And if there's 1 more needed, maybe the chair can have an extra vote or something, but not necessarily do it tonight, because, I think some of us maybe would want to get in touch with some of these folks and see who they might want to propose. I think that works better
We
than...
we could do it that way, or we could do it how we've usually done it, where we all say who we want, who we recommend for however many open slots we have, and we tally it up, and the top vote getters are the ones. I mean, I don't feel like I need to have an appointment authority over an individual. I'd kind of like to know where the whole board is at.
You mean to weighted votes, you mean like,
Yeah, well, yeah, Pat's suggesting we each appoint somebody.
See what the overlaps are.
The other approach is that we all, if we have 9 slots, or we have 7 slots, or whatever, depending how we do this, we all say, okay, here's my 9, or here's my 7,
but I
and
think
tally
that's
it.
right, though, you should roll the people on the current in.
Who are they? I'm sorry, I don't
Like
remember.
Tom Emero's one.
Yeah.
first 3?
Right, well, I mean,
Bruce Berry.
and one of them actually said, I might step out if there's enough applicants, so I don't know if even that's a valid assumption.
The other thing you've done in the past, is you've invited the applicants to come in and...
Well, that's what we were
Yeah,
just,
yeah.
that's where we started,
Yeah.
was ask them to come in and speak.
Right. We just got this on here because the application deadline was just middle of last week, so you can
Right.
get started.
This is, I mean, first of all, I just want to, thank the applicants. This is terrific that we got so many people interested in this one committee. So do we want to invite them in?
I think it's a good idea.
Okay. Mark, what,
That's fine.
Ken?
I can't.
I would invite him in, because it's like the exact opposite problem we usually have, so I'd like to at least vet them out a little bit. And we've gotten in trouble before just taking people blindly and
Right.
having issues, so I think we should vet them a little bit more.
Pat, you okay with that?
Yeah, that's fine, yeah. You know, unlike on the diversity committee, I don't think this is one where we can accept all of them, because it's too many.
So I guess my next question is, do you want to do it next meeting or October 4th, or invite them just next meeting or October 4th to come in? Because next meeting is going to be full too with the sewer discussion,
Yeah,
right?
next meeting, you have the PFAS and the sewer, Southwell sewer issues, yeah. But the other thing is, if you give them, it's more lead time as well. If you-
That's
you
where
know,
I'm thinking
it's-
Christina's got to give notice, they've got to be
Right.
able.
So right now, we'd be less than a week's notice to show up next Monday, so the fairer thing might be to invite them all in on October 4th. If that's okay.
We're gonna give them 5 minutes apiece, 4 minutes apiece, something like
Yeah, no more
I
than
can't hear,
that.
what did George say? I didn't hear what he said.
Speak into the mic,
Oh.
George.
that. Sorry. Give them like 3 or 4 minutes apiece, I guess, right?
Yeah.
What we could do is, I could ask Christina to invite them to the October 4th meeting, and if they're not available that night, that they could come next week.
I
And
was
that,
just
you know,
going to
to avoid the
suggest that.
conflict. Right, okay. Okay.
Everybody okay with that? Thank you, Mr. Sperry.
So,
Okay.
and then, so then I guess I want clarification on how, so we would all vote for 9, and then the top 9 that overlap would get appointed? I mean, sometimes I have to say, quite frankly, I think that means that the top 9 who people know the best are going to be the ones that,
Well, the same thing could happen if we're all just appointing one person,
that's true.
okay? That's, I mean,
But in theory,
So-
with 22, if we all pick our top 9, you're going to have a ton of onesie-twosies
Mm.
that, and then you're going to, all right, now we're going to have a runoff? I mean, my guess with 22 is we're going to be voting twice.
okay.
Please.
Twice.
But I'm fine with that, as long as we understand what we're getting into.
Do you have a preferred approach?
No, I think I like the voting, and then.
You like the voting?
Yeah. And then
Okay.
if we get down, there's a bunch of onesie-twosies, then we look at just that group, and we select to there.
Excuse me, we're not gonna take the current committee, and then just like,
How do you feel about taking,
I mean, they've done the work already, they've been doing time in the committee. I think the current committee should get rolled in, and then we knock them out of the 9 and vote on the remaining.
Just confirm that one person that may or may not want to roll over. Sounds like if there was enough.
maybe Paul Christina could confirm with the current committee whether they,
Okay.
just in general, if they want to roll
Okay.
over.
When you had the comment, the one person who said they
Yep.
might not take
Yep.
it, well, maybe,
Exactly.
well, you got 22, are you still
All
interested?
right,
You know,
we'll do that.
and then show them the list of other committees that have vacancies.
Okay. So with that, we'll go back to agenda item number 7, the Fall Town Meeting warrant articles.
Thank you.
Are you going to go through the presentation
Yeah,
this
we'll
evening,
go through the
Paul?
presentation, and I'm thinking the same thing. We got Christina Papad, oh, there's Deb Taverna here. Hi, Deb. Same
So we-
courtesy, we'll take their articles out of order, so that way they could free them up, particularly
So,
Deb
so
Taverna.
before we get started, just for the board, this says select board recommendations, so we have people coming in to do briefings. The finance committee is not voting until Thursday of this week, and the planning board has not closed their public hearing yet, so they haven't voted yet either. So my question is, do we want to take the presentation tonight and vote next time, after the other committees and boards get through their cycle?
I would like
or-
to hear the deliberations in the planning board on some of these and the finance committee,
Okay.
so.
I mean, I'm the exact opposite. I mean, they have different reasons they might vote a certain way, so I would be okay voting tonight.
maybe something that'll come up during that meeting that we're not aware of, though.
Okay,
You know what I mean?
I mean,
So,
I'm fine
yeah.
waiting if,
More information's better for me.
because I don't think it's gonna take long to vote once we vote. All right, I guess, Pat, that's sort of
I
the
guess
consensus, right?
I guess I used that one, so
Okay.
not the first time.
For any of us. It's not the first time for any of us.
All right, so tonight we will hear the presentations, ask clarifying questions, and then we'll vote next meeting. And Paul, which article are we taking?
22 would be the first one. It's the demolition delay.
Change my glasses.
Amendments to the general bylaw regarding property inventory, and Deb Taverne has been generous enough to take her time and come down this evening in person, and so invite her to the podium. We'll get the slide up, but
I was going to say, I need the slide.
I'm
might be hard to
working on
read
it, Deb.
from there. In fact, what I can do is I can give you mine there, so you
Oh.
have to squint across the room.
Okay.
May have to swing here, too.
The first slide just says amended as follows, so there's
Yeah,
the
that's right
actual
there.
meat of the,
Yep.
Basically, this is a house cleaning item. When somebody applies for a demolition delay permit, we require that they do a professional inventory so that we know the history of the house. We don't have staff to do that, or enough people on the committee. So we've been asking those who want to totally demolish a house, have something prepared so we can see the history of the house, any significant architecture, all of that. But the wording was rather vague. So we're adding that the inventory is to be prepared by a historic preservation consultant and following approved state guidelines, because all of these properties then go on to the state inventory.
okay?
And so,
Any questions?
and just so I remember 4 years ago when I started going to historic commission meetings, I was very confused over the definition of inventory, because I thought they were going in and counting lights and fixtures and things like that. So everybody's clear, it's a historical inventory of what's gone on in the house, who designed it, and things like that.
And the architecture, who built it,
Yep.
who's lived there, any significant events that occurred there.
And having sat through tons of your meetings, I think this is good.
It will help us
Yes.
in the future.
Any other questions?
Is there a waiting period, Deb, if you vote to demolish something, is there a waiting period, not like an appeal period, like 10 days or anything like that, or?
I didn't catch the
If you,
first
if
part.
you vote in your meeting to demolish Building A,
Right.
can they demolish it like the next day type of thing?
I believe they can.
Okay, I didn't know if there was a waiting period in case somebody didn't know about the meeting or thought of something that had happened, whatever, an appeal type of period, that's all.
No, it's an open meeting. We do post it that it's happening. And usually, it's a two-part meeting. It's a two-meeting occurrence. They come to us and they tell us that they want to demolish the house, and then the next time they come in
Okay.
with the inventory.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, Deb.
Where are we going now, Paul?
Go to the next article, or a series of articles. We're going to ask Christina Papadopoulos, our town engineer. Articles 23 through 29 pertain to amending the zoning bylaw regarding stormwater design guidelines. Town Council Paul Haverty thought it best to basically pull apart the amendment into separate articles. And it's really more for submission approval, because as the board and the community may be aware, town meeting general and zoning articles have to be submitted to the Attorney General for review and approval under mass law. So Paul thought that the most straightforward and clear way to do that was to break it up into these 7 different articles. But how we're going to handle it at town meeting is by a consent agenda, meaning all the articles would be moved upon at the same time by a vote of town meeting for a consent agenda, and then Christina will do a comprehensive discussion of each of the articles, answer questions along the way, and then it'll be one vote, and then we'll submit it, with the 7 texts. So I just want to explain to folks what's going on here.
So you
in terms of the process.
you don't see folding them under a consent agenda to be in conflict with parsing them out individually?
No, it's just more for clarity.
Because it's driven by the state review?
Right, and the
why-
reason is when you see her walking through this, you'll see that some are wording changes, some are, recommendations and so forth, and I just think it was just clumsy to try to do it under one omnibus article. And so town council, Paul Haverty basically said, let's just break up into separate articles, but then we can do it by a consent agenda. So that way, each article gets voted and recorded separately and submitted separately and stands on its own, but the vote and the presentation will all be done in a consolidated manner.
Okay.
So if you move ahead to Christina's, the color slide that has her presentation,
Oh, is it at the end?
it's at the end, it's following Article 29. Right,
Yep.
right there, and then she'll just walk you right through it. She had a run on this last Thursday with the Finance Committee, it worked well.
Great. Good evening. Christina Papadopoulos, Town Engineer. Thank you so much. So the question is, why do we need to change all of these zoning codes? Well, the reason is EPA, again. So EPA has the Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System, which we call the MS4 permit. That's the permit that allows the town to discharge stormwater to the waters of the U.S. Essentially, this MS4 permit requires that permittees, that's us, the town, must update their regulatory mechanisms within the permit. So we need to develop, implement, and enforce a program to address post-construction stormwater runoff from all new development and redevelopment sites that disturb 1 or more acres and discharge to the MS4 system. The next thing we need to do is permittees must modify their regulations to encourage low-impact development. So that's what these code changes do. The stormwater bylaw that was passed in spring of this year at town meeting was the first step towards complying with this requirement from EPA. So these changes to the town code will help keep consistency throughout the town regulations. So without making these changes, then we have a lot of different codes. So essentially, I'll go through all the different codes, but essentially keep in mind these are the reasons why they need to be changed. The various repercussions that if we don't revise the codes again is the stormwater regulations would remain antiquated and non-cohesive with the new stormwater bylaw, and the town would not be in compliance with the MS4 permit, and the town could get fined by EPA. But of course, there are benefits. So the benefits are that it encourages better landscaping and green infrastructure. It would improve water quality, encouraging groundwater recharge, improve erosion control, and improving aquatic and wildlife habitat. It would also provide cohesion with the stormwater regulations and compliance with the EPA permit. So the first change is Article 23. It's in the section of off-street parking and loading. Basically, we've made an amendment to the purpose and intent. What it does is it adds words to it. So it says, reduce impervious surfaces and stormwater runoff through sustainable design. We added and encourage the use of low-impact development or green infrastructure. You see, we didn't really change a lot there. We're just, throughout this, we're trying to encourage low-impact development. And we need to reiterate that so that EPA can see that we're encouraging low-impact development.
Any questions on Article 23?
Oh, yes, of course.
All right.
Okay, Article 24 is within parking, so parking and loading area design and location. So Amendment H is the amendment allows for the use of curb-only sawtooth curb and curb cut treatments as needed for low-impact development, that's LID, stormwater management. So previously, we said you need to curb everything, and now we're saying you don't really have to curb everything. You can do different types of curbing as long as it's with low-impact development management. The next one requires that street entrances be designed consistent with mass amendments to the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices, which we call MUTCD, and the Municipal Traffic Code. We just had an older version of that document referenced in the zoning code, so I took this opportunity to update it with the current code. The next one, it allows impervious parking materials as part of stormwater management designs without limiting these materials to, quote, supplemental parking areas where excess parking is necessary. So previously, we allowed pervious parking materials, but only if it was part of like a supplemental parking area, like it was an overflow parking for like an event or something like that. You needed extra parking. Oh, you can do pervious pavement there, but now it kind of opens it up, saying that you're able to use it more freely with removing the restriction that was kind of implied in the previous version of the code.
Okay.
So I have a question on that one in
Sure,
particular.
yeah.
I guess I don't understand why we're not making pervious parking areas the default rather than having permission to do it.
Well, it does take a lot of engineering work to get a pervious parking lot to work. You need certain
distance
to groundwater, you need the right site, slopes, and it needs to, and obviously it's a lot more maintenance, so the owner of the property would need to be up for performing all that maintenance, and if you don't perform that maintenance, then it basically fails, and there's no point in doing it. And of course, there's a larger cost as well associated with it. So all those factors do play in when you decide whether you can or cannot use pervious pavement.
Okay, because my understanding is there is one location in town that, for many years now, has had pervious parking area, and I haven't noticed any additional maintenance required for that parking lot, although maybe I don't see it.
They're taking care of it. They're doing a great job of taking care of it. Yeah, anytime you drive by and it's raining, you don't see any water flowing off of it. So it requires a vacuum truck, a special vacuum truck to go over it. Instead of like a regular sweeper, like we would normally sweep the streets, they actually have to vacuum it up because any extra dust particles or dirt that winds up in it clogs it and won't allow it to work properly.
Who is it?
So they're
North
it's
Road?
getting,
Talking about the North Road?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Across
Kransky's
from
building?
St.
Yeah.
Mary's.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you didn't even know?
No.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I mean, I think, I would hope that maybe as the technology improves, maybe it could move more towards being the default rather than, special permit, but that's just my feeling on it.
Baby steps, I guess.
I guess. Yep, incremental.
Yes, incremental.
Can I just ask a side question on that? Like, all these
Yeah.
places that are already built, I think they're all grandfathered from all this?
Well, this would apply to future development.
Like, I just
So
noticed
if
there's
they were-
some businesses in town, you drive by in a rainstorm and water is gushing out of their parking lot, onto a road, but they're grandfathered, I assume? Like, there's nothing you can
So-
do about that?
Right, so unless they are performing some kind of work on their site, then there's nothing really to do about it. Yeah, they're just existing
All right.
site that's not getting developed, so. But it's once they come back and they need to develop something, or they need to put on an addition, or need to do some sort of substantial work that, requires them getting, a special permit or a site plan approval for, that's when we would be able to use these if they met the criteria.
Got it. Okay.
Any other questions on Article 24?
No.
Article 25 is within erosion control, and I just copied the whole passage, so you can see that I changed 2 acres to 1 acre, and then I added "or part of a larger development." So basically, EPA has specific language they want in our codes, and we had previously, we had it as totaling 2 acres or more, and I just changed it so it's compliant with EPA, so now it's 1 acre or more, and same thing, or part of a larger development. So if it's like a subdivision and each lot is like a half an acre, you still would be, and it's like, 6 lots, then you would still be, disturbing more than 1 acre, even though each lot is less than 1 acre. That's kind of what that means.
Any questions?
Okay, Article 26 is within landscaping, and I just added an objective G, which is to minimize runoff through green infrastructure and low-impact design. So,
Questions?
So on something like that, is there some way to measure how much difference it would be under low-impact design than whatever the norm is now?
EPA does have some design tools that we can use to quantify how much pollutant is getting removed.
Uh-huh.
So,
Oh, okay,
yeah, there is a way.
okay, good, thanks.
Okay, Article 27, Site Plan Review. In Section E, it renames, again, this is really just updating the code to the current standard, which is it renames the Mass DEP Handbook to what it should be called, and it references the Chelmsford DPW Stormwater Management Regulations for the comprehensive list of stormwater design requirements, because currently we have a lot of stormwater design requirements in a lot of different places, and so you don't really know where you're looking for them. By having one place for all of the design requirements, it makes it much easier to know exactly what's expected and what is required from the town. Okay, Article 28 is the site plan review.
I have a question, actually.
Yeah, sure.
The recommended changes for a full list of design requirements refer to the DPW stormwater management regulations. Is that a statement within a bylaw, or is it a bylaw requirement that the DPW is going to maintain a central place for the central design requirements? Do you know what I'm
How I
saying? There's a
understand it
difference.
is that it is referencing another document that contains all of the design requirements. Just like we're referencing the Mass DEP Stormwater Handbook, we're also referencing the DPW Stormwater Regulations, which has all of our local regulations which comply with EPA. Because that's where all the really technical stuff from EPA that they required in the MS4, that's where it all is.
Okay.
Okay. So Article 28, Site Plan Review. It requires that low-impact design strategies be used to the maximum extent feasible, and that is language from EPA that they are requiring us to include that within our codes. Okay, Article 29 is terminology, and I'm just adding a term, landscaping. And it is the process of making a yard or other piece of land more attractive by altering the existing design, adding ornamental features, and planting trees and shrubs. This can include green infrastructure or low-impact design/development, LID, bioretention areas, vegetated swales, planter boxes, rainwater harvesting systems, natural channel design, and other vegetative practices. So this is, again, just driving home the low-impact development should be included when you're thinking about landscaping in general. A lot of this stuff was driven because Planning Board, during a lot of work sessions, really were interested in more green infrastructure, improving landscaping around town for any future development. So I thought that was a good way to kind of add some more.
Any questions? All right, thank you, Christina.
All right, thank you so much. And that's
Thank you.
that's the end of those articles.
Right, and then before she departs, the final article on the warrant, which is the Dunshire Drive easements, Christina was heavily involved in that, so I'm going to ask her to just explain the plan and what's going on there with the request for easements for the Dunshire Drive culvert work.
Sure, thank you. So Article 30 is about the Dunshire Drive easements. As you know, we are working real hard on trying to get the two failing culverts in Dunshire Drive replaced. We're working on the designs and finalizing the designs. During the design process, it was noted that we're going to be replacing the existing older culverts with larger concrete box culverts. With larger culverts comes a larger footprint and some wing walls, which also improves the quality of Deep Brook. So Deep Brook is the stream that goes through that neighborhood. So with larger wing walls, we found that we were expanding our outside of the easement limits. So we already have a 30-foot easement for Deep Brook and to maintain Deep Brook within that neighborhood. And then we noticed some smaller areas that we wanted to include just for to be complete and to be more, more precise with all of this. So the plan shows the small areas that are going to be the permanent easements. Those mostly will be containing the wing walls and for us to be able to get in and maintain the wing walls if we need to. And then the other larger swaths are the temporary easements, mainly just so we can get ourselves and maybe something else in there to try and clean out the stream bank, maybe do some enhancements along the stream bank, restoration, et cetera. So once those get finalized, what will happen is they will go to an outside appraiser. Those pieces of land will get appraised, and that will then be presented to the homeowners, to the landowners. And so this article, once that process is done, it further authorizes the select board to acquire these easements through any and all legal means available under the general laws of the Commonwealth.
Will that reduce a lot of the flooding down there? Is that,
So the design has taken all of the extra flooding in consideration. However, it isn't a flood zone, so we can only, do so much, but it will allow, it will increase the flood capacity.
some of these closer to
Agree.
Tingsboro Road, then in the
Yes.
Tingsboro Road end is where a lot of the, matter of fact, a lot of the water comes back from the river, doesn't it?
Yeah, there's that culvert under Tingsboro Road that
Yeah.
oftentimes becomes clogged, so causes some problems.
Thank you.
Sure.
Christina, can you just, maybe for the benefit of the board, repeat what you told one of the other boards or committees about your conversations with the property owners?
Oh, sure. So, so the finance committee, right, I think. So, I think they had asked me, how do property owners feel about this type of project? So we've been in contact with the most of the property owners over the last couple of years, because this is an ongoing project. We got funds, a while ago from the MVP program to help design this. So they're thrilled that we're coming to the neighborhood and thrilled that their culverts are going to finally get replaced. And the only person that has contacted me so far, because I did already reach out to all the affected properties, and the only person was like, "Great, how do I donate my land?" So, so they're very happy from what I can tell so far.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. Does that mean that they're happy enough? Yeah, they will donate the property instead
He
of...
was very happy enough to donate it, so we'll see. He said I advised him to wait until the appraisal gets back. So. But they're very small pieces of land. I think the last page has a chart of what the various square footages are for each piece, and they're pretty small, and they're just easements. When it's no permanent takings. It's easements.
Now, for the temporary easements, do we typically have to pay for those, or are those generally just borrowed, I guess you could say?
No, they do get assessed.
They do, okay.
Or appraised.
Appraised.
Yeah, appraised.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Anything else? All right, thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you
Christine.
so much.
Where we go now, Paul?
Okay, we can go back to the beginning, Article 1. Yeah. Okay, so as is customary with all annual town meetings, spring and fall, Article 1 is the reports of town officers and committees. Under the provisions of the town's bylaws, we're required to provide a 5-year financial forecast. John Souza, who's on the call with us this evening, will help me with these articles, but he will present the 5-year financial forecast. Before we then get into the other articles, I'll give a financial overview of the warrants that put into context of coming into the meeting, what's being proposed. I also plan to tape a video in advance of the town meeting, a couple weeks in advance, so town meeting reps and others interested could, and similar to what you're seeing tonight, and that the Finance Committee have an opportunity to, again, learn more about the articles. And then the only other article that I'm going to report that I'm going to provide is I've asked Chief Ryan and DPW Director Gary Persichetti, who are on the Permanent Building Committee, to just give an update on the North Fire Station construction, because at that point, we'll probably be about 2 weeks away from completion. So they'll probably have photos, a brief description, and then maybe even announce dates for the open houses if we're that close at that point in time. So that's what will happen under Article 1. Again, there's no votes taken, and we really, in the spirit of the COVID environment, we're really trying to move things along. So that really be all what we do under Article 1. The next slide just shows our free cash history. As you know, we have $5.67 million in free cash this year, and the next slide shows that we have $10.9 million in our stabilization fund, which is 7.5% of our current operating budget, which is the midpoint of the town's financial policies. And then the final slide shows the stabilization fund history. As you can see, it's roughly around that 7.5% mark. And then slide 7, as I mentioned earlier, just sort of gives the overview of how that free cash is proposed to be allocated at the town meeting under the articles. So once that's completed, there'll be a motion for a consent agenda to take Articles 2 through 8 and 10, 15, and 16 under a consolidated vote, because they are repetitive and tend to be ministerial articles at the town meeting. The first one is Article 2, which is the Cemetery Commission. And I'm going to ask John Souza to speak to this, as he did at the Finance Committee last Thursday evening, since he's a cemetery commissioner, and he can briefly give you an update on the request for funding and the progress of the expansion at the Pine Ridge Cemetery. Good evening, John.
Good evening. Thank you, Town Manager Cohen. Good evening. Good evening, Madam Chair and Select Board members. Just to give it, if any of you have had an opportunity to drive into Pine Ridge Cemetery recently or over the last year or so, and you drive towards the newer area in Upper River Neck Road, you've probably seen some of the work that's been going on. The next step in the process is there's a road that has like a gravel base, if you will, that's been installed, but it needs to have the base coat of paving installed. And there's also some work that you saw in two newer sections. It's been seeded with grass, but that needs to develop a little bit. And once the roadway has been installed, a cemetery layout firm, it's a contractor, will be doing some mapping and doing a detailed plan, but they need that pavement to be installed so they can use that as a reference point. And once that layout is completed, lots are expected to be available for sale in July of 2022. Also, if you've driven into Pine Ridge, and there's also one in Fairview Cemetery, you've seen that the columbariums continue to be very popular with residents. This is where you buy a space in the columbarium if someone chooses cremation. And our superintendent notes that the niche wall of the columbarium that was installed back in March has already about 50% sold. So this will allow for the construction of a fourth columbarium at Pine Ridge. So that concludes the work that will be performed with these funds. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Any questions?
Great. The next article, Article 3, is the Commonwealth Transportation Infrastructure Fund. Again, this is under consent agenda. The appropriation is $5,758, which is the dollar amount that was received in the last calendar year from the Commonwealth Transportation Infrastructure Fund. And we're required under state law, this was the law that was in about the rideshare assessments, and we're required every year to appropriate this at town meeting and then report to the state every December on how the monies from the previous year have been expended. Again, this was enacted by Chapter 187 of the Acts of 2016 by the legislature. What happens is there's a 20-cent per ride assessment, and the half of the funds go to the state and half goes to the community where the ride originated. We received in calendar year 2020 $5,758, which meant that the towns had 57,580 rides originating in Chelmsford. This was down because of the pandemic from the prior year when there were over 100,000 rides originating in the town of Chelmsford. And again, the funds have to be used to address the impact of transportation network services and safety and so forth. You may recall a year ago we did this at Fall Town Meeting. We used that for the LED stop signs that were installed at Grandville and School Street. We'll find a use for this $5,700. Why this is done is there are communities such as Boston and Cambridge where these rideshare numbers are in the millions, and there are communities where the ride shares are in the tens of dollars in other parts of the Commonwealth, just as you head out to the west. So, again, it's a ministerial motion for $5,758.
Any questions? Okay.
Article 4, another consent item, it takes place at every fall town meeting, is transferring money into the Sewer Construction Stabilization Fund, and this falls under the town treasurer, so I'm going to turn it back over to John to explain why this occurs and the amount that we're seeking. Thanks, John.
Good evening once again. This is an article that you've seen in the past, and what this represents is this is the amount of interest earnings that are earned during the course of a fiscal year on our sewer betterment funds and also our sewer capital improvement fee, which is the surcharge that all ratepayers pay on the base sewer rate. And what these monies were collected for is to pay for the sewer, a portion of the debt service on the sewer construction phases that were completed after 2005. So it's important to note that on all those phases completed after 2005, the town's long-term fiscal plan envisioned that we would use these funds to pay the debt service charges and not tax dollars. So these monies get transferred into the sewer construction stabilization fund once per year. And it's important for us to save this money, set it aside, and this will be used in future years to pay sewer debt service charges out through fiscal year 31.
Any questions?
We're not trying to find this debt service though, right? We're trying to fund it?
Yes, this will be to fund it,
There was a
Did I
typo in
typo?
that
all
slide.
existing debt service.
Oh, okay, fine, okay, there we go, thanks. Yeah, it's funded, yeah. And again, by Mass General Law provides that unless we had a special act of the legislature, all monies that come into the town have to go to the general treasury unless voted. So that's why this occurs every year. Article 5 is another consent agenda item, ministerial item. The planning board administers an affordable housing stabilization fund, and in the town's inclusionary zoning bylaw, there's the ability for a project developer to do a payment in lieu of construction of units. And then what happens is under the bylaw, that monies get paid, but then, again, town meeting has to vote those monies, place them into the stabilization fund, and then town meeting would then, by a 2/3 vote, have to vote them out of the stabilization fund. So this is the inward flow. So during the past year, in speaking to the town accountant and the community development director, there's $16,250 that has been received by the town under the inclusionary bylaw. Again, this just puts it into the current fund balance, which is over $620,000 at this point in time. So this is not an expenditure and appropriation, it's just sort of putting it into the fund. Again, if some project does come forward, such as David Hedison, for example, is eyeing this in the event a project were to come forward, there'd be a return to town meeting to actually vote by 2/3 to expend those monies. So that's what's happening under this article. Article 6 was a placeholder for collective bargaining agreements. There's no action being taken under Article 6. Article 7 is an unpaid bill from a prior fiscal year. This one was brought to our attention about 2 weeks ago by town accountant Darlene Lucier. She was contacted by the new finance director in the town of Dracut, saying that they discovered an invoice in the amount of $200.60 for a police detail that has not been paid to the town of Dracut. And according to the invoice, was invoiced to the town of Chelmsford on October 31st, 2016. As you can tell, these things happen rare and few and far between, and you know, Darlene went into our accounting system. We don't see payments, so we verified that we had not paid that bill. So we're seeking is town meeting approval to pay a prior fiscal year bill. And under state law, a bill from a prior fiscal year requires a 4/5 vote of town meeting. So again, it was somehow lost, 5 years ago. So,
Thank you.
if there's no questions, we'll go to Article 8. Article 8, it was the placeholder in case there were any adjustments to the current fiscal year operating budget. There are no requested changes to the budget that was approved back in June at the spring town meeting. Article 9 is the first substantive financial article where we leave the consent agenda. This is a transfer of $1,987,640 from free cash to fund roadway and sidewalk construction. As I explained at the previous meeting where we sort of reviewed the highlights of the town meeting warrant, the Commonwealth is level funded to Chapter 90 road construction program to cities and towns across Massachusetts at a funding level of $200 million for the last 9 fiscal years. Therefore, Chelmsford receives right now, based on our mileage of roadway, $1.15 million annually. The survey that was done, an analysis by the Mass Municipal Association, shows that basically this funding level is about 1/3 of what's required to adequately maintain roadway infrastructure across the Commonwealth. And clearly, we've heard concerns about the roadway conditions of roads in Chelmsford. Despite the fact that we supplement this Chapter 90 funding with $750,000 of roadway and sidewalk construction in our annual capital budget. The DPW has the capacity to appropriate and expend and complete with hired contractors about another $1 million of roadway construction in a construction season. So if this money is appropriated, this would add $1 million roughly to the next 2 construction seasons to allow us to do some catch-up and some work. Regarding what roads are going to be maintained, we will, meaning the Public Works officials and I will come before this board at a future meeting, go over a roadway and sidewalk plans, hear whatever concerns there are, and then, look upon those things and make final decisions prior to the, commencement of the construction season. So my guess is that work will be done in the next few months so that you can get the engineering and design and work out to start when the weather breaks next spring.
So the DPW has a list of priorities.
Yeah.
And that's what you'll bring forward.
Yes.
Will the two public input sessions that we're having, that could also inform
Exactly.
the process?
Exactly. That's
Okay.
part of it. And, and they also have a roadway maintenance plan that's being updated as well in terms of, it's been a few years since they went out and did the actual inspection and analysis of the current condition of roadways. So all that's going to take place along with the traffic listening sessions. And then, we'll continue to make, and in fact, the Mass Municipal Station coming back for additional funding, they asked the governor for additional $200 million in the supplemental state budget because the state finished with the budgetary surplus. The legislature hasn't enacted upon that, but thus far, we're not seeing any signs that the legislature is going to use the state surplus monies towards road construction, which is a little disappointing because, clearly we see our roads, state roads, bridges, and other, infrastructure in need of attention.
Can I ask?
Yeah.
Just so I understand the accounting side of this here. We get 1.150 from the state for Chapter 90 funding.
Yep, that comes from the gas tax.
So when that comes in, you're basically saying that goes into our free cash?
No. That's almost like a grant.
So you have to use on your roads?
Right, you have to use on your roads. It's restricted monies, have to be used on roads. So that right now, they're out there, doing roadway construction in the
Right.
community,
So
sidewalks, yep.
if you're proposing under free cash to spend 1.9, but that's one,
On top of that,
in addition to?
in addition to. Oh, yeah, no, we're not supplanting our own monies or Chapter 9 monies. This is in addition to,
750.
plus 750. So basically, what that would mean is right now, we're spending about $2 million a year on the town's roads. For the next 2 years, we'd spend $3 million.
Okay.
So does the 1.987, is that covering part of what you had allocated with the seven?
No, this is in addition to. In other words,
Okay, but it says DPW has a capacity to perform an additional 1 million, but you're putting an additional 2 million.
No. Our current state, and where we've been for the last 9 years, is we've put in roughly $2 million in road and sidewalk construction annually. When I asked them, how much more can you take on in a reasonable construction season, given everything else that you're dealing with, in terms of the demands on public works, and they think that they could contract out for another $1 million of road and sidewalk work.
But this 1.9 is for 2 years, correct?
Right, in other words, right, it's an appropriation that'll
Yeah,
be,
he's dividing it.
Okay,
Right.
thank you.
But the numbers just match coincidentally?
yes,
So I think that makes it a little confusing, because everybody's going to look and they're going to say, that's the same 1.9.
right, but it's not. It's not. And how the
It's really been off by a
and
dollar.
how the 1.9 got to is we had to take the free cash number and, back everything out, including the money we use to reduce the levy, the money that goes to
Right.
that interest account that John just spoke of, and then to round to the final dollar. That took it from the highway monies.
I think it's just going to make it confusing to
Okay.
the town reps, because it's the exact same number. They're going to think it's the same
So
number.
what do you want to do, change it?
We'll try to make it
$5.
clear. I'll try to make it clear.
Yeah.
at town
Clarify
meeting.
it a
I'll try to
little bit,
clarify
I
it. at
Maybe
town
do-
meeting.
put,
do
maybe put a
$601
couple
to
of
keep
columns
it.
or something that says, here's the,
Okay.
Or call it a match,
Yeah.
a match to the pro, I don't care. But just make it clear that it's
Okay.
different money, because
Okay.
I got that, but I was like looking at,
Yeah, I think
why
a
are we
little
using the exact
table
same
would
dollar
take care
amount?
of
Okay.
It's
All
gonna
right.
really be confusing.
We'll make it clear, but.
Thank you, Paul.
All right, Article 10 is no action. That was a placeholder for sewer capital improvements. The reason there's no action is the sewer capital improvements can be funded under the American Rescue Plan Act, which will be subject to other hearings later this fall, which we'll probably schedule at the next meeting or two. Article 11 is the PFAS remediation. Again, Paul McKinley's coming back in next Monday evening for further discussion as this submits the plan. It's clear, from the presentation it was to me last week, and I had asked them when I prepared this, that how much money do we need? At this point, the number is $600,000, which was the high end of the two options he gave. So that's the number at this point in time. to address the PFAS.
And that was for year one.
Well, yeah, it was a little more than year one.
That's what I thought,
Yeah, it was a
yeah.
little more than year one.
So we're really conservative
It's sort of,
on that
yeah, it's
number.
conservative, plus there's ongoing operational costs, so
Right.
it would stay in a
Well,
fund.
that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah,
is-
just so the board understands, when we do votes on these warrant articles, those monies aren't tied to the fiscal year. They stand in a separate little account
Okay.
until they're exhausted. So if they spend $410,000 and we appropriate 600, that money stays there and it can be used in
Goes down.
subsequent years for the ongoing operational costs.
Okay.
Can you vote to pull it back?
Yeah, you can rescind unexpended balances, which you'll see under.
We've done that.
We've done that before. Yeah. And again, I think we all know what PFAS is at this point. Article 12 is the Freeman Lake weed control, and I'm requesting $65,000 to treat non-native invasive and aquatic plant species, or weeds, at Freeman Lake. The 82-acre water body is at a place now where the density and abundance of weeds, or non-native plant species, is something I haven't seen in 15 years, and in talking to others, it's nobody's seen it like this. I mean, to the point, as you saw, we had to close the beach. We first looked at this about 3 years ago because there were issues on the periphery, but with the warm temperature conditions, the heavy rains, and the runoff, it was like the perfect storm of weed control, not only in Freeman Lake, but we saw it in Hart Pond, and we see it around the area. You talk in other communities. In looking at this, it seems the most effective approach is to use an herbicide called fluoridone, which is regulated by, as we know, by the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and is in their best lake management practices, guidelines, to really, tackle this problem. And then in subsequent years, you're always going to have, regrowth. And that, I think there'll probably be more discussion, in terms of whether you do spot treatment, or do you do herbicides, or do you do weed harvesting and what have you. But the levels now are, this is what has to be done. As the board knows, we reached out to the North Water District. They've not expressed any concerns, the Conservation Commission, Board of Health, and so forth. And I think fortunately we have the lessons of how we've worked with the Hart Pond Association to control weeds in Hart Pond over the years. So that's what we requested into this one. And again, that initial treatment probably won't cost 65, but again, I want to make sure there's a little bit left over in case issues, arise that are unforeseen, or, because what'll happen is when the ice melts and so forth, you really need to apply this in the springtime. It sits, and goes into the roots for several weeks, and then, but it's not toxic for people. But then that way, when the beach opens and so forth, it should be quite a difference. So that brings us to Article 13, which is free cash to reduce the tax levy. The request here is $2 million, which would, to reduce the current property tax levy for the tax rate that will be set in November, December timeframe. This matches the $2 million that was appropriated for the year we just finished in July, on June 30th. Again, just to give a sense on what does this mean, last fiscal year, the average single-family property tax bill was $7,411 for a property assessed at $470,000. Every $1 million is $70 on the average tax bill. So again, if we appropriate the $2 million, it will keep that funding level constant, meaning that the $140 that was saved on that average bill last year would carry forward into this year. And then under this next article, I would propose to take another $1 million and put it into a stabilization fund to address it for the subsequent fiscal year, to avoid, not knowing what's going to happen at the end of this fiscal year, but certainly to avoid a big spike in taxes in a worst-case scenario. So basically, the request is $2 million to reduce the levy for the current fiscal year.
Any questions? Okay.
And then Article 14 is to take the $1 million that's remaining and to put it into the General Stabilization Fund. As I noted at the beginning, the current balance is $10.9 million, which is that midpoint of 7.5% of our town's financial policies of 5 to 10%. of the $144.5 million operating budget that we have. Again, the thought would be is have that there, and that at a minimum, we'd have $1 million available to apply to the tax levy in next fiscal year in '23. But that's an article that we can't appropriate at this time. That's why it goes to the circuitous route of into the stabilization fund, perhaps to come out in the next year. So that's really what's being requested at this point in time under the stabilization fund. And also, the end of this week, we're expecting to receive our bond rating report from Standard & Poor's on Thursday. They're looking at these issues as well, and John will be coming back at a subsequent meeting for approving the borrowing that he came in before to explain about the refinancing the issuance of the debt that was approved at spring town meeting.
Any questions? Okay.
Okay, Article 15 is in 16 of the last two from the consent agenda, so they'll be taken up earlier, but it was going in order to avoid flipping back and forth. This is rescinding unexpended community preservation fund appropriations. They have unexpended balances from votes at prior town meetings for projects that are completed, or extra funds in their reserve accounts for recreational use in the first case, open space in the second case, reserve accounts, and then the Varney tennis and pickleball courts at a $6,000 balance remaining, the Fairview Cemetery wall restoration at a $3,500 balance unexpended, and then it was $200 left for the restoration of the stage at the Chelmsford Center for the Arts. So what this does is this releases those monies and puts them back into the Community Preservation Fund General Reserve. So again, that's how we sort of clear out old appropriations. So there's no questions on that. Article 16 is the same thing for authorized but unissued borrowing, to remove the borrowing capacity from the books. In this case, I'll ask John to explain the Warren Pole property, and he was involved obviously with the borrowing on that project. Thanks, John.
Good evening, everyone. So to explain the reason for this article, special town meeting, as everyone recalls, approved of $1.2 million for that project to purchase the Warren Pole property. We always try to do our best to try to minimize borrowings whenever we can. And in this case, we were able to pay the initial deposit, that the purchase of that land, out of other cash CPF funds that we had available through the administrative account. And also the appraisal costs came in less than budgeted. So we in this case, we were able to, we only bonded $1,125,000 rather than the $1.2 million. So that's the reason for taking this action, to clear this authorized but unissued debt off our books.
Any questions? Okay.
Thank you, John. Moving on to Article 17, I submitted this article. This was basically a housekeeping article. And you may recall a few months ago, people watched the meeting, I'm sure I know the board does, when David Hedison was in and explained how the state law had changed, and that there's now a tenant board member of the Housing Authority in accordance with Chapter 121B of the Massachusetts General Laws. Our charter describes the composition of the Housing Authority, and so because there used to be 4 elected members and 1 appointed by the Secretary of Communities and Development, there's now 3 elected members, 1 tenant board member, and then the 5th member appointed. So this language would basically change the charter language so that it's consistent with the requirements under state law, and in fact, the practice that's in place right now. So again, this is a housekeeping article to, because just to make our charter consistent and legible with the requirements of state law. And the reason for that is under Massachusetts Constitution, cities and towns have no inherent right, so therefore, we're sort of subservient to the change in the state law. So you can say, well, why doesn't the charter overrule it? No, the charter exists at the will of the legislature. There is no, independence. So the question would be, well, what if this didn't get approved and didn't get voted? We'd have to do it anyway.
We are doing it anyway.
We are doing it anyway, yeah, exactly. We are doing it anyway. So that's Article 17, so it's really a housekeeping article.
Yeah.
Article 18, again, we're getting now into the articles that our town clerk, Tricia Durr, presented to you at the last meeting and then presented to the Finance Committee last Thursday evening. This is the one, Article 18 is the issue of elected candidates for reelection, and what this would do is this would clarify that those town meeting members who are elected can submit for reappointment, but it doesn't apply to those who were appointed to fill a vacancy. So that's what's taking place under this article. Under Article 19, this issues the issue of election of town meeting members in the event of a tie vote. And again, this changes the language so that, it allows the ability to hold an election basically remotely, sort of similar to what we did under COVID. So the language that requires the town meeting members of the precinct to gather together in a convenient place are basically, it's modified to allow a notification of elected town meeting members within that precinct of the vacancy. So the goal is that this would perhaps allow for more of the town meeting representatives to vote on that, fill that vacancy, as opposed to the few that show up when we do it at the night of town meeting or, at other occasions.
Any questions?
Article 20 is filling town meeting member vacancies, and what this would do is this would establish a minimum threshold of 10 votes to be eligible to fill a vacancy for a write-in candidate. And as it was explained last week and explained here previously, it used to be 5, then it was down to 0 where it stands now, and this would bring it back to 10, bring it up to 10 in order to be eligible to fill a vacancy. And again, I think, as was explained, it's a lot of administrative work tracking down onesies and twosies in terms of trying to fill a vacancy, town meeting rep. So.
Paul?
Yes.
At the FinCom meeting, it was stated several times that, I'm sorry, I don't remember her name, Tricia's predecessor in the clerk's office had brought this before the Charter Review Committee as a, could we get someone to explain to us why? I mean, this is a charter change outside the Charter Review Committee cycle.
I guess.
Do you know why?
I don't know why. I mean,
Is there a chair of the Charter Review Committee that we could ask to come in?
I think it's probably Sam Chase.
It was.
I know who it
Chase.
was, but I'm
Yeah.
just.
Yeah, we could ask Sam to come next week.
Yeah, maybe
he'll
just
be
to
there Thursday night,
just to
too.
clarify.
Okay. Sam Chase, Article 20. Okay.
We can take them out of order if we
Sure.
have to.
That's fine. No, that's fine. That's fine. Okay.
Thank you.
I think that's it.
21.
21. Oh, 21. Yeah, I submitted this in consultation with the town clerk, Tricia Doris. This is basically would amend our general bylaws by enacting a bylaw that would prohibit municipal meetings from taking place during an election. And I think there's twofold reason for this. One is with the re-precincting that's expected to take place in the next 2 months, and it'll become effective next spring. This municipal offices will be used as a polling place, and so it creates concerns in the building with parking and activity and people coming in and out and reserving spaces and ballots and so forth. And it was just felt that with that reason, as well as the idea to encourage and free people up to participate in elections, that we would prohibit meetings from taking place throughout the community during elections of municipal bodies. So that's what's requested under this article.
There was a question about election hours versus election days.
Yeah.
Council looking at that?
Yeah,
or-
we're going to look at
all
that
right.
to find out what,
But the intent is on election day,
it's on election
basically.
day. Yeah.
The question that came up was, do all of the early voting days count as election hours?
It's a good question.
Yeah, and we think it's not because that's actually voting, it's not an election, but there's a difference. But anyway, we'll clarify that. And then that's it. We've done the remaining ones of the warrant.
You've done everything else? Thank you for coming. Okay. If there's nothing else on that, that brings us to liaison reports and referrals. Pat?
Thank you. So this is kind of a timely announcement. At last week's Northern Middlesex Council of Governments meeting, there was, the executive director announced that NEMCOG recently received a Regional Energy Planning Assistance Grant in the amount of $54,000. And among the items that will be used to fund, it's going to assist with net zero municipal operations in the towns of Chelmsford, Pepperell, and Westford. It'll prepare a greenhouse gas inventory in Pepperell and Chelmsford. It'll scope a community net zero plan for Chelmsford and Westford, and organize and host regional clean energy workshops. So I think it's something that our new committee will take an interest in and maybe have an opportunity to participate in some of those activities. Also, just a couple of reminders for this weekend. On Saturday, September 25th, is the celebration of the Day of Peace on the Common from 1 to 5 p.m. There will be events, there will be entertainment, there will be speeches, and I believe poetry readings. So Saturday afternoon from 1 to 5 p.m. on the Common. And then Sunday on the Common is the COVID Service of Remembrance, Gratitude, and Hope, which is sponsored by the Chelmsford Clergy Association. This is a candlelight service that will be Sunday on the Common beginning at 6 p.m., remembering those who we have lost due to COVID-19, and to thank the healthcare workers who are, working tirelessly to help people get healthier. So anyway, so this weekend is a lot going on at the Common.
If I can interrupt, Madam Chair, David Boucher from National Grid is on the call. He had the time wrong. I don't know if you just want to acknowledge him.
Sure. Hello.
Hey there.
Are you here for the poll petition?
Yes, I apologize for my tardiness. I know you spoke of it a little earlier. How did it go? Did you have any questions?
Well, we voted in favor of it, but if you'd like to just confirm what it is you're doing, we'll take the input.
Yep, very, very simply, there's at 278 Mill Road, there's a new business going in there, a commercial business that needs electricity, and what we'd like to do is place the pole as shown on the diagram that we provided, 95-50 on Mill Road. It would enable us to go into the property and bring our electricity to the back left part of the property, and put a transformer in and get them going. The reason why we need that is the particular pole that's right there, that's 25 feet away, that we're going to tap from, is an angle pole, and we need a straight line when we tap off of it. It's just preferred and a lot easier to work with, and that's the reason why we need that pole. So if there's any questions that you can think of that you may have thought of in the meantime.
Any questions?
Since I was late.
Anybody feel the need to revote?
Nope.
I don't feel a
Okay.
need to revote, but since we have him here, I will mention that for whatever reason, recently I've gotten half a dozen comments about double poles again, and I know you don't individually work on double poles, but, whatever progress can be made on reducing double poles in town would be appreciated.
I'll tell you what I can do is there is a liaison. We have liaisons for every town. I can find out who that is and let them know that maybe you'd like some more information on how the information on the double poles is shared amongst the companies, the utility companies, and also the towns. The towns will have the fire department, all the fire departments still have some lines that are on the poles, and when we change the poles out and the double pole occurs, sometimes the fire department of each of the towns and cities needs to be notified. So there should be someone in your fire department that knows, but I will let the liaison for the town of Chelmsford know that the town council might not like a phone call or an email or something so that you can get on top of things with those.
Okay, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yep.
So with respect to the poll petition, I think you're good to go.
All right,
You voted
yes, thank you
already.
very much.
Thank
Have
you.
a good evening. Yep.
Thanks for coming.
Yep.
Okay, back to liaison reports. George?
I have one.
Okay.
That's a quick one. Friday, I was called by Gary Persichetti to meet with Gary, Scott Ludwig, and Steve Yanley up on Ledge Road with the group of people that were in here 2 meetings ago. And we looked at both pieces of the proposed bus turnarounds, and unanimously, the piece, Esther Road piece was picked. What it's overwhelming, much simpler and much more safe for the youngsters up there. And the people were very happy that we were up there. And so what I believe Steve or Scott is doing is drawing a radius for the end where the bus can turn around. That's all it is. And if this is accepted by everybody, this will be a wonderful thing. Save a lot of trees, and the beauty of whatever beauty. I mean, it is kind of nice up here. Still a nice setting. So I mean, I think it went very well, and they were happy. So we get one problem out of the way up there, and then we can work on another one.
So that'll still have to go through the process, right?
Require a town meeting.
Town meeting and
Grab the
then,
Yep.
yeah.
If we wind up having a special
Special,
town
we can put it
meeting,
on there.
we can add it
Put
to
on there.
that.
Yep.
Okay, and get it going.
Yep.
So does that mean the other land, we're not going to do anything with that?
Right.
We'll just let that drop? Okay.
Thank you, George.
Okay.
Mark?
No, all set.
Ken?
Just sort of one notice that tomorrow night Commissions on Disabilities is meeting remotely, and they've done a really good job, filling that committee up over the last few months, and to the point where we have one seat left. But they did ask me to ask about the timeline on the parking spot downtown.
No, they're literally put, and because we had a traffic safety committee meeting this morning, you'll have a report next meeting, but they're putting in the polls this week, and we're hoping by October 1st that should all be
When you
completed.
say polls, you mean the sign polls?
Sign polls, yeah. Well, we're hoping by October 1st it'll all be completed.
Okay. And that's it.
Okay. Couple things from boards and committees. Just a reminder that the Board of Health will be holding public flu clinics, and the sign-up for those flu clinics opens on Tuesday, September 21st on the Board of Health website. Pre-registration is required. As we mentioned before, this Thursday, September 23rd, the Finance Committee will be voting on its recommendations for the Springtown meeting warrant articles. And on this Wednesday, September 22nd, the Planning Board will be continuing its public hearing on the proposed changes for the stormwater bylaws and other codes that you heard Christina Papadopoulos speak about this evening. So if you have comments for the Planning Board, your opportunity is this Wednesday. The Vinyl Square Strategic Action Plan Committee would just like to thank everyone again who participated in their transportation infrastructure survey with NIMCOG. They're currently narrowing down the date for their meeting in October, but their plan is to have NIMCOG come at their next meeting in October to review the concept planning that's come out of that, or to give a status of it. And they are planning a public presentation with public input in November. And then I have 3 things in terms of future agendas. Paul, do you want to just update the board on the traffic listening sessions?
Thank you.
And the public.
Yeah, the traffic listening sessions are scheduled, as the board voted, on Thursday, October 7th at 6:30 PM at the Senior Center. And then the 13th at 6:30 PM will be at the Center School cafeteria. So again, we welcome everybody, and we're going to get notices out. We just confirmed the 13th was the hard date to choose to nail down. The Senior Center wasn't available, the North Town Hall wasn't available, the PAC wasn't available.
And the CCA wasn't available.
CCA wasn't available. And remembering that the direction of the board was to do one in the center of town, we were able to use the Center School. So we'll be blanketing out notices on the website, social media, and so forth, and including our next 2 meetings to notify people of the traffic listening sessions.
And the plan is still October 7th, we'll do North Chelmsford,
Chelmsford,
and then the 13th, we'll do the rest of town. I had a question about the the air quality testing that was done and when we expect to get results back from that to brief?
It will be at your October 4th meeting.
Okay,
So
thank you.
we just got word today
Somebody
that
was
the
asking
report will be,
about that.
they weren't able to get it in this week, so it'll go October 4th.
Okay. And then I got a suggestion from a resident that I thought was a great one, and I wanted to bring that before the board and Paul, where we're reading all the committee vacancies every month and where we got such a great response with the Energy Committee. The suggestion was maybe we should do board and committee spotlights. So either pick a meeting or over the course of several meetings where we have vacancies on these boards and committees, invite someone from that board or committee to come in and just speak for a few minutes about what they do and give a little more insight and see if we can help drum up a little bit more interest in applying for them.
I think it's a great idea, because when they see your passion expressed by like the chair or whoever's running it,
Yeah.
it's contagious, you know.
And then I was I was thinking about that, Paul, and I don't know if it would be possible, but if we're doing these either as a meeting or just, a few at each meeting or a couple at each meeting, I'm wondering if Chelmsford Telemedia could just like cut out that clip and just put a committee vacancy spotlight out there on social media or something like that. So,
Okay.
we're helping them highlight the vacancies. So, okay, so I'll work with Paul on that. That is all I have. Any saved rounds? I don't see any press. So I will take a motion.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second the motion?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0 at 7:41 PM. Thanks, everybody.
Before the full moon.